Hello and welcome to another demonstration of TVP Animation 9. The purpose of this demonstration is to familiarize you with working with customizing your own brushes. And for this particular example, I'm going to be using we're going to be creating a digital pencil. Now, let's see, the only problem with pencil is that if you use a real pencil and you use the very tip of the pencil, you're going to get a very sharp line. You get sharp lines when you use the side of the pencil. You get fat strokes, textured at that, and also angled strokes. So it's wide in one direction. It's wide when you work crosswise to the actual the direction of the pencil. So if we look at this airbrush at default settings, it's nothing like an actual pencil. When I use the tip, it doesn't get any smaller. So the way to deal with that is in the airbrush settings, you can go to the size. You see all these, there's all these attributes for the brush: size, power, opacity, blah blah blah. In size, you're going to see there's these little funny buttons here. C means that it's set to constant size; it doesn't change. You have to link it to your actual to the stuff that comes off of your tablet. You got to link it to the data that comes from your tablet, and so I'm going to link the size to the altitude of the brush. The altitude of the stylus, and the altitude is how much this thing is tilted. So when I start using the very tip of it, I get a fat stroke. When I use the side, I get a skinny stroke, and that's the opposite of what we want. So to fix that, it's very easy. You can just go into the just drag this thing open, and then open up the profile editor. So the profile editor here, there we go. We can just I'm just going to flip the X on that, and so when I draw now, you'll see that when I use the side of the brush, it's wide, but when I use the tip, it's very narrow. Now, unfortunately, you're going to find that right off the bat, it's a little bit blobby and inconsistent. So the way to deal with that is you switch this thing to, you can use a spline. If you look carefully, you'll see how it's all nice and smooth, but if you use linear, it'll be this sharp, jagged transition. I'm going to use a spline because I want it to smooth everything out. And I'm just going to crank these up just a little bit so that now when I start drawing using the tip, it'll be much more consistent. It's very consistent now. That's good. Now the only problem is that when I start using the side of the stylus, it doesn't seem to stay at its full size. It doesn't seem to stay at 100 pixels. So the way to deal with that is, again, put some more points up here at the top to keep that nice and big when you're using the side of the stylus, and you're going to have to adjust things until it's exactly the way you want it to behave, until it's consistent. Let's see if that stays any larger. There we are. And really easier for you to see now. There, I'm using the wide side. Now I use the tiny side, the tip. So it's much more like an actual pencil. Now the only problem is that this thing is circular. It's a circular brush, so the way to deal with that is into the aspect over here. There's the aspect control, and this thing I'm going to link that also into the altitude, so that when I use the altitude of this brush, well, you're going to see that when I use aspect, see that how the brush turns into a skinny line? That's the aspect of the brush. So now when I use this brush here, and I use the tip, it'll be round, but when I use the side, it flattens out and becomes wide. Well, it's a little too soft too, so let me crank up the power. And the power is over here. The power here is sort of the opacity of the brush. That can be linked to pressure. Let's crank that up to 100%. And now I have a nice fat, deep stroke. But it's not quite flattening out as much as I'd like it to. So the way to do that is to go back into, let me just close that, go back into the aspect profile editor and do the same thing. I'm going to switch it to a spline, and I need it to bottom out just a little bit. I'm going to raise that up so it doesn't get too skinny. Because if it gets too skinny, you're going to get some funny artifacting, and you're going to get these little steps. And the way to get rid of those steps is to simply turn off the step. So we turn that off. Now it's smooth and much more consistent. The only problem is that this brush is a little too. Well, you'll notice that it's got these soft edges. It's got this soft fringe. I want to get rid of that fringe. So right here, you can see all we're doing is we're just taking this soft circle and we're squishing the soft circle down. So we need to turn this from a soft circle into a relatively hard circle. And way to do that is, let me just delete some of these extra points here. And get rid of that, and get rid of that. And now I can just crank that up, and now it's a hard circle. But let's see. There's still a bit of a kind of a soft edge here. You notice that if you look really carefully. Well, let me turn the power down. You're going to see that the center is still darker than the outside, so we can't have that. The way to do that is to just move this down. Now you're going to see on the center of the circle. See that? How the center of the circle here is gonna fade. It's back to spline mode. Let me just turn that down a bit, and let's see how that goes. Oops. Let's see. The center still looks a bit dark, so I'm going to turn that down some more, and you just get it until it's right. So that's pretty much how to set up this brush. Let me see what else we can do to this this brush here. Oh right, there's the angle. The problem is that when I turn this angle, right, this thing is sitting flat. We don't want that. We want this to actually turn. But we want it to follow the brush because it seems to be, you know, stuck at this one angle. So when you look here, right, no matter how I turn the brush, it's still at this one darn angle. So the way to fix that is you can go into, let me set the angle back to 0 and link the angle. Here we are. I'm going to click on the angle thing, and I'm going to link this to the azimuth. And the azimuth is the bearing of the tilt. Altitude's the amount of tilt. Azimuth is the direction. It's the bearing direction of the tilt. Right? Now the only problem is that this thing is tilting perpendicular rather than parallel to the stylus. So to fix that, I'm going to go over here to the angle here, this little offset here. I'm going to put in a little offset. I'm going to bump that to 90 degrees. 90 there. So at 90 degrees, it should now be parallel to the stylus. There we are, just like a real pencil. All right. So I can use the tip. Let's clear that. I can use the tip to use very, very fine strokes, and I can use the side to use these wide strokes. This thing's a little bit big. Let me turn that down from 100 to, let's try 30 pixels. And, okay. And let's see, what else did I set the power to 1 by accident. Let me crank that back up to 100. And now I have myself a very nice pencil. Now the only thing is that I'm missing right now is, we're getting a bit of artifacting. So to deal with the artifacting, you can go back to the aspect, and you can, you know, adjust the bottom end of things. Yeah, but for the most part, it seems to be behaving rather well. I'll just show you close. And the way to deal with the artifacting, best way to deal with the artifacting is to go in and throw in a paper texture. So if you turn on the paper texture up here, this little button here, let me zoom in on that. This little guy, all the way up here, you can turn that on and right-click it, and now you can choose a paper texture. I particularly like using the cement soft paper texture. I can close that now, and there we are. Now we have ourselves a fairly realistic pencil. And one more thing is that when I use the pencil and I lay the strokes side by side, you're going to see there's this buildup. We don't want that buildup. So to get rid of that, you can switch the mode to the alpha diff mode down here at the bottom. I'm going to switch to alpha diff mode, and now I can lay strokes. Whoops. Oh, one more thing I got to do is I got to turn on drawing. So I'm going to turn on the drawing. There we are. And now I can lay strokes side by side. If I want them to build up, then I can just scribble back and forth, or I can push extra hard, and that will allow me to build up the stroke. And at the same time, your stylus will probably have these little side switches on it. Let me just see if I have a proper background. Let me get a white background behind this thing. Here we are. You've got these little side switches here on the stylus. So right-clicking with this is going to help you. Is going to allow you to erase. There we are. Now I can erase away, and I can draw. So this is what I use for a lot of my own paintings, and it's a very nice, you know, approximation of an actual pencil. And the nice thing is that you can get a gradate. You can get, you know, medium-sized strokes like this, and you can get wide strokes, and that is one thing that the real pencil cannot do. So anyway, stay tuned. We'll have more demos out, and until next time, catch you later, guys.